Good afternoon, everybody. We are very sorry for being a few minutes late. We did have some technical difficulties. Technology isn't always on our side. So this is Carrie Howard from WritingCity, and on the other end is Desiree Bolton. We just need to test sound and make sure that you all can hear us. So I am going to find here my attendees list. On your GoToWebinar toolbar, there is a hand tool. If you click on that hand tool, that will mean you hear us. So if you can go ahead and click on the hand tool so we can know if you can hear us or not, or hear me rather. So go ahead and locate that hand tool and let us know that you can hear us. Okay, good. And you can, I will be sharing my screen here. Give me a second. Okay, and you should be able to hear, see our screen as well. Okay. Okay, guys, just to do some housekeeping, there is a little quick activity while we wait for a few to log on. Very simple. It's a little Padlet there. You should be able to click on the link that you find in your chat or question box. And what we'd love for you to do, because sharing is caring, and we love to collaborate and share ideas. So go ahead and put in a remote tool that you've used, or if you don't have one, it's okay. You can just kind of see what other teachers add to the Padlet. This is one example we're going to talk further about today. Also, you will receive a recording shortly after this webinar. Okay, so if you have to log out early, no worries. You will get that recording. You'll be able to watch the rest. In addition, we'll have a question and answer session following the webinar. And we'll begin here shortly in about a minute or so. Now there is a question box. So if you have any questions throughout the webinar, we're going to do our best to answer them, but most likely we're going to save those questions for the end of the webinar. Okay, so go ahead, you can use that question box, no problem, and we'll try to do our best to get through those.
Carrie, one thing I'm just seeing, a lot of people are putting their answers in the question box. In your welcome message is the link for the Padlet. If you can go ahead and put your resources in the Padlet.
There you go. Okay. Let's go ahead and move on because we want to be respectful of your time. We want to make sure that we end this in a timely manner. You can go. We can get started, Desiree. Let's go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me well?
Yes, I can.
All right, awesome. Well, welcome everyone. Today we're going to be working through our tips and advice for remote learning, specifically looking at making connections to support WritingCity with our remote tool. So my name is Desiree Bolton. I am an educational leadership specialist with WritingCity, and I'm joined by Miss Carrie Howard.
Yes, so I just like Desiree, I was in the classroom for quite a few years, and we both have had the pleasure of using virtual tools in the classroom. So we thought that we'd share some with you using or making connections to support Writing City with remote tools.
Can you hear me still, Carrie?
Yeah, is it delayed?
I'm thinking it must be. Okay, so today we're going to take a look at how we as educators can use digital resources to enhance the Writing City curriculum and support remote instruction. So at this point, I know that there's lots of planning going on for next year. So whether next year is your traditional brick and mortar model, a remote learning model, or a hybrid of both, we know that planning makes us the most successful educators. So we'll be exploring a first grade lesson and a fourth grade Writing City lesson with technology enhancements that assist in bringing our curriculum to life outside the classroom. As we go through the tools, if there's a tool you're finding that you're interested in or unfamiliar with, don't worry. In the email that follows with the recording from today's webinar, we'll put in the links from our first two webinars where we went more in depth with each of the different tools that we're going to be talking about. So just as a little disclaimer, this is just a reminder, we're not sponsored by any of the following apps. They're free apps or we're using the free version. And we're just simply passionate educators looking to support all of our teachers during these uncertain times and anytime moving forward. And this webinar is brought to you today by Writing City.
Excellent, thank you. And I am hearing people saying that they cannot hear us or see the screen. So if you can just quickly send or just raise your hand if you can see the screen. If you can see the screen, just want to double check. Okay, because if you can see the screen, raise your hand or let us know. Okay, perfect. So those of you who can't see or hear us, okay, it might be on the other end again. You will receive a recording so you can watch this soon. So I just wanted to make sure we're all together.
All right, so before we dive into our lessons and our tools for today, we just kind of want to take a few minutes to talk about best practices and discuss some helpful tips to support the implementation of digital tools. So keeping students on task and excited about learning can take all of your best classroom management strategies, even when you're delivering instruction face-to-face. So teachers across the country and across the world have had to adapt at light speed and implement remote learning strategies. So we're just going to go over some best practices when you start introducing remote learning with your students.
Okay, number one tool at a time, my friends. Just focus on one tool at a time. Remote learning is new. It's new for all of us. So if you try to do everything at once, you run the risk of burning out. So start slow. Introduce a new tool or assignment and see how the students respond. Introduce it one tool at a time, okay? If it works, great. Keep going and build on your success. If students aren't engaged or there are too many technical glitches, it's taking too much time for you to get through a lesson, then find something else and move on to a new tool. The next one is focus on active learning. Try to ensure that your instruction is mostly student-centered. It's so easy to just get in front of the camera, load a bunch of content and things from textbooks, and just make it all about what we want to communicate to them. And we forget that it needs to be more student-centered. It needs to be active learning where they're being part of the lesson. So distance does not prohibit collaboration. Be sure to set those clear goals and include students in the process. Keeping students motivated can be very hard and difficult, and doing it remotely makes it even more of a challenge, right? So have students set individual or class goals. You could set your class goals for working remotely, and then communicate these goals with students and family, all while you are, remember, doing one tool at a time. Plan for time flexibility. Oh, this is so hard as a teacher because I'm sure, like me, you watch the clock all the time. And working remotely really limits us, right? So please just be flexible and be patient. That's the key to success with remote learning. Technology may not be on your side at times, or families may not always be able to support the instruction, but always have a plan B in place and be flexible about the delivery and work completion.
All right, so now moving into planning for student connections. Thankfully, over the past few months, we've had a lot of teachers ask, how do students make connections during distance learning? And this is such an important piece because as soon as you remove them from the classroom, some of them have that feeling of loneliness or isolation. So while remote learning isn't a perfect substitute for in-class instruction, there are a lot of ways to keep students engaged when they are learning from home. You have to remember, school is more than just academics. So distance learning needs to be more than just academics. It's about preparing students for life after graduation, building in those soft skills and forming relationships. So it can be really difficult for many students to transition from that busy classroom to a house without classmates. So try and find an online space where students can have discussions, maybe about lesson materials, or they can share what they're doing during the day, and where they have the ability to ask any questions they may have. You also want to encourage your students to interact and just to talk about and to get over the feelings of isolation and loneliness, and try and build in that collaborative learning environment from anywhere. The next thing we have is super important, just like in our classroom, communicating expectations to your students. We need to connect with our students early and often and send home assignments, share logins, and any other information for online platforms that they need to be using to find out what kinds of resources they have available to them. This is the time where it's definitely better to over communicate than under communicate. And students and parents at this point, they're resting, but lots of them were feeling overwhelmed and felt ill-equipped to support their learning at home. So when you make it clear you're available to support them and what the expectations are, they're more likely to become active participants in their learning. And along the same lines, you want to build in that ability for student feedback. So I know, thinking back to the classroom, there were days in the traditional classroom where as a teacher I would pause, tell my students, well, that lesson was just a disaster because it didn't go as I planned, or they just didn't get the concept I was trying to cover. So we gather feedback from our students and we use that to fix the lesson for the future. Moving into distance learning, we need to build in those same opportunities as well as others for student feedback. I know that I was reading about a recent high school student study where the kids responded on ways to improve distance learning. They had said that their video chats would make them feel more connected during remote learning, but out of all of those students polled, only 2% of them could say and give examples of how their teachers had done this well. So if they had been given the opportunity during distance learning to provide feedback to their teachers, then the teachers could have made changes that would have supported their students and their student success. And that would really let our students feel involved in the decision-making process and heard and connected. So really important to keep those things in mind. All right, so we're going to move into our first grade lesson where we will explore several tools that we can use to enhance the WritingCity curriculum to support remote instruction. To begin with, we're going to take a look at our first grade objectives for this lesson. We're going to be working on Unit 5, Narrative Writing. So our goal for the day includes introducing a new planning chart, understanding that writers plan, and then use their plan to write, as well as sketch and labeling. Then we're going to take a look at our standards. Just go back one, Carrie. Thanks. So then we're going to take a look at our standards, taking special note that there is a standard with an asterisk, and that means that this standard is being introduced for the first time. So that's a major focus, describing character, setting, and major events in a story using details. Okay, and then we're going to be covering 3 parts within the lesson. which will be our modeling, our independent practice, and our conferencing. So just highlighting those 3 portions within this lesson and showing you some free interactive tools that you can use to enhance the curriculum outside of your classroom. All right, so first we're going to take a look at how to enhance the modeling portion of this lesson. Traditionally, our K-1 teachers will be in front of their students modeling for this portion of the lesson. But with the shift to distance learning, either full-time or part-time, we're now looking at supporting modeling through digital platforms. The goal for modeling within this lesson is that the students are able to learn that narratives are sequenced events that include characters, a setting, and events. So during my modeling, I will review how to create their own planning sheet. So taking a look at the modeling steps here, it's going to have me walk through and guide me through how to create the planning sheet. And then I'm going to have the students see how I created my own planning sheet using the tool Cami. Yep, you're good, Carrie. Yeah, there you go. So that's the sheet that I actually uploaded straight from WritingCity, and that's what I'm going to use to model. So taking a look at the modeling steps where it has me write in my where box, my when, and my beginning, middle, end box, as well as reading my plan over, you'll be able to see the planning sheet that I went ahead and filled out. Okay, and I've got my who, my where, and my when, and I was able to either upload pictures in to make it more interactive for my kids. I was doing some drawing tools so that I could actually do this live with my students and they could see my screen, and then work through the beginning event, the middle event, and the end event. And then as a class, we would work together to add in additional labels. So that's just one way that I can enhance my modeling. Okay, the next step that I worked through was the independent practice. So here we will incorporate the oral rehearsal into our team meeting. So as I'm talking with my students, they can share out, they're going to rehearse with me and their partners and talk about the stories that they've decided to write about. So once the students have selected the story they're ready to write about, then we're going to move into using Jamboard, which is a Google-based interactive whiteboard to support the students while they're drafting their work. So that's where my kiddos are going to be working on their beginning, middle, end, their who, what, where, when. Yep, just like I did. Okay. So this student is in the beginning stages of planning. As the students work with their Jamboard planning sheet, I'll check in just as if I were in the classroom, just to ensure that they're meeting the expectations of the lesson, as well as a check for understanding for the new concepts that's covered. So you can see the students just at the beginning stages. Okay. The final step that I'm going to enhance is the conferencing. So I'm going to be using the Google Slides as a place for each student to actively display their Jamboard. This way I can provide the opportunity to conference. So reviewing the look-fors, I'll share my slide deck. So those are my look-fors right there. I'm going to share a slide deck with my students. These are the things I'm specifically looking for: sketching, labels, character setting. Okay, so I'm going to share this slide deck with my students. It says Unit 5, Narrative Writing, and it's my class. So then what I'll have each student do, they're going to upload their work, and I can clearly see that my buddy Jack Day is not quite where he needs to be. So I told him this is where he's going to add his Jamboard sheet. So as soon as my students start populating it in, I can have private messages with them, or private chats, or I can even pull a group together. Go ahead and click, Carrie. I can even pull a group together if I'm noticing that these kiddos have planned or set up their sheet, but there's no planning going on. So I can pull them privately and with any other additionally struggling students and talk to him about the next steps of his planning sheet. Even using the Google Slides, I can write right on his paper. I can give him some suggestions, and this will be a great way for me to pull the whole class back together for that closure activity and just talk to them about where they are, where they need to go, even moving the Jamboard up to cover up their names to keep it a little bit more private if that's what I wanted to do. Okay, so just as a wrap up, these are just 3 of the different tools, all free, all interactive, that I planned on using to enhance the curriculum, especially for my K-1 friends, where that teacher really is the model. to support their learning outside of the classroom. And then at the end, Carrie and I will definitely be taking any questions if you have anything specific about the K-1 curriculum or any of these apps.
Yeah, and I'd also like to mention, because a lot of you in the chat box are asking about these resources. So this is a series that we've been doing. We did 2 previous webinars on all of these resources that we're talking about, and now we're making connections on how you can use those resources to support Writing City curriculum remotely, teaching remotely. So all of the things that we're talking about, like I'm going just to reiterate, are in the previous webinars that we've done already, okay? So some of you are asking about the resources. We're gonna touch up on one a little bit deeper today, but again, it's how to use these to support the Writing City curriculum. So now we're going to go ahead and take a look at an example of a 4th grade lesson. This is a narrative lesson, and how we can use those tools to enhance this Writing City lesson all about narrative. So let's take a look at the objectives. For this, the objectives, now just to remind you, whenever you see a W in front of the standard, that's a writing specific standard, and an L is language arts. So the standards with the W, for this one, the students will use dialogue and description to develop experiences and events to show the responses of characters to situation. And for language arts, they're going to learn how to use commas and quotation marks to mark direct speech and quotations from a text. The different elements of the lesson that we're going to take a look at for this particular lesson is the anticipatory set, the input, the guided practice, and the closure. So a lot of you have been using Writing City. This is, for those of you who don't know, Writing City follows the Writer's Workshop model. So it's that I do, we do, you do model. And I'm going to go through it and kind of explain what the sections are and tell about it more so you have a better understanding. Beginning with the anticipatory set, this is sometimes called a hook. It grabs the student's attention. So in this particular lesson, there's a short activity where students, traditionally what we would do as whole group, we would grab a book that has some strong dialogue, and we would read this aloud to our students, having them identify the dialogue and ask the question, how does the dialogue add voice in the writing? Now with remote learning, time can be very limited, right? So, and this one you can see it takes 10 minutes of your FaceTime. So what I thought I would do is create a Padlet. And this is going to, and really quick, before I move on to the Padlet, because I'm kind of jumping ahead of myself, Writing City lesson plans are very much guided. You'll notice that they're guided, they're not scripted. So it makes it very easy for us educators to transform these lessons to meet the needs of the teacher style, for different content areas that you're doing in the classroom, and then most importantly, modify them to fit that remote teaching, that virtual classroom environment. So here's how I transformed this lesson for distance learning. What I did for the anticipatory set, so instead of doing this during your FaceTime, when you are meeting with your students virtually, I've created a Padlet. So this is a Padlet, and again, all of these resources we delve into a little deeper with the past 2 webinars, and we will send that in the follow-up so you can watch them. But the idea I had was to assign this as part of their morning work and review it during FaceTime with the class. So this will give me a better idea of how much they know about using dialogue and help guide further their instruction. Now, just a side note, this is lesson 2 or 3. So they've been introduced to dialogue already before. This is kind of building on what they know. So I created a Padlet and embedded a video of a story called The Spider and the Fly, where students can listen to it on their own and answer the question. And you guys just did a Padlet right before. we started. So let me go ahead and show you what that Padlet looks like. That's the one that we did. See, here's the Padlet that you all did of the different resources that you've used. But let me go ahead and show you the Padlet I've created for dialogue. And just really quickly, I'll let you know all the resources we're talking about today are free. And you can create up to 3 free Padlets. Okay, so here's the Padlet I have. Here are the directions. Before we start class, watch us read aloud, the spider and the fly. As you read along, identify the dialogue that was added to the voice in the writing. Why is it important to use dialogue in our writing? Add a text box by double-clicking on the outside of the video and tell us your thoughts. So definitely be explicit with those directions. Here's the embedded video, and most likely you probably can't hear it at this moment. I did have at one point I had it playing on outside speakers, which was the cause of our technical difficulties. Excuse me. So that's why that's not. But anyhow, they'll be able to watch the video. They could double click here to add a response. You as the teacher will even be able to move these boxes around. This is just a great time to see how much they know and really help. This can really help you guide instruction as you get through the lesson, just to see how much they understand about dialogue. Okay, so they're going to do that for morning work, and then you would just discuss it during your FaceTime. Okay, so the next part of the lesson we're going to look at is the input. And this is where the new learning takes place. So during this time of the lesson, you should be meeting virtually with your class because it's the new learning, right? They're going to, this is where you're going to introduce what the focus skill, the objective that they're going to learn and understand by the end of the lesson. It refers to the vocabulary skills and other concepts the teachers intend to incorporate in the session. It's the I do part of the writer's workshop. It basically summarizes what the students need to know in order to successfully master the lesson. So traditionally, what we would do for this part of the lesson is students would listen to the teacher read aloud a writing piece that we provide you with. WritingCity gives you many writing pieces. So you don't have to get your students writing or whatever, but we provide you with that type of mentor text. And what the teacher will do is display it using projector, right? The teacher's going to model where the use of dialogue is in the writing sample and then have students do the same. The last thing the teacher is going to do is model adding a piece of dialogue to the writing piece. So how did I make this fit the remote learning environment? And I think, let me go ahead and open. I used Jamboard. And I'm going to go ahead here live in the site so you can see what I did. So I basically took a snapshot of the writing piece by Abby, and I put it on a Jamboard. So I would share my screen with my students using whatever conferencing tool that you're using, Zoom, Meets, Teams, whichever one. And I would read this aloud to my students. I'm going to model here. I have the ability to add little sticky notes. So I'm going to read this aloud. I'm going to identify the one use of dialogue in this writing sample. Then the students, this is the next step in the writing, in the lesson, the students will then identify some dialogue. And number 3 is you are going to show them an example of where they can add dialogue to, and this is basically what I did. I just put it in the Post-it and put an arrow there. Okay, and then I would read it again with the dialogue added. All right, so the next element that we're going to look at is the guided practice and the check for understanding. So this is the we do, okay? This is where the students will demonstrate the new learning, which is using dialogue. And in this part of the lesson, the students will add at least one more section of dialogue into Abby's writing piece. So since this is the we do piece of the lesson, it's done with the teacher's direct supervision. So the teacher leads the students through the steps necessary to perform the skill taught. Now, traditionally, that you would have students, you can have them come to the board and add a piece of dialogue. You'd have a classroom discussion. Now, how would you do this virtually? So there's a few ways that you can do this. You can use Jamboard. So here's my Jamboard. Jamboard, now you can easily share this link with other students, and it's all real time, so you can see as they add to their board. Now you also, so we can work off of one board, or we can have multiple boards, okay? So you have the ability to have different tiles. So what you can do is, while you are having these discussions, whole group with your students virtually, you can have groups already set up and have students, groups of students, work on different tiles or different boards. Okay, it's all part of the same Jamboard. So what I did was I broke apart this writing sample, and I'm going to have group 1 add a piece of dialogue to one part of this writing. Group 2 will add a piece of dialogue to this piece of writing, and then there's the last piece of writing. And then we'll gather together and discuss whole group. Now, your second option is to do breakout rooms or breakout sessions. And essentially what that is creating 3 different, let's use Zoom as an example, or this GoToWebinar. You're going to create 3 different webinars or 3 different Zooms and have students jump on those in those groups, and then you will log on to each one and just see how they're just go ahead and chime in and see what they've completed and give them the feedback that they need to each group individually. And lastly is the closure. So the closure of WritingCity curriculum. This is where you'll give some type of formative assessment, or students may be sharing new knowledge. We also celebrate successes. So for this lesson, we have some exit tickets, and we have it for we have lower level questions, medium level questions, higher level questions to meet the needs of your students. So if you have your enrichment group, you may want to give them those higher level questions. You could do this several ways. You could create a Padlet, you can do a Jamboard. What we did today, what we thought is we'd show you more about Flipgrid, because I know that was something big that you guys really liked the last time. Flipgrid, again, is free. It can be an app. You can students can access it, or you can access it via app on your handheld devices or through the laptop. So what I did was, I'm just kind of diving in just a little deeper today, just to show you some more things about Flipgrid. And so when you go into Flipgrid, you're going to create an account, and it's going to take you to their main board, which is grid. So what you do is you create a grid, and through these grids, we're going to create little videos, because what it is you're creating a recording of yourself asking the questions, and then students can respond with a video. It's just a different way to interact with the students, right? So when you log in, you're going to create a grid, okay? What you're going to click on the My Grids and then click on Add Grid. You're going to name your grid, and there's 3 different ways students can access this through their desktop or app. I would recommend the student ID, because all they're doing, all it is you're sharing this link, and once you add the students in, this is the next step, they're going to get this little code. So they're going to go to this website here, and they're going to enter this code. So I'm going to show you the screen of what it looks like. So here's what the screen looks like. And let me make sure I have, so let me just, give me a second. I'm going to go ahead and add that in. You see what happens when we go live? Everything's all over the place here. Here we go. Hold on. Give me a second, my friends. So I had it open and it disappeared. Where are you? Here it is. Okay. So I am going to add in the code that they gave us. They gave each student has their own code. Okay. And here's my grid that I've created. This is for Geo Howard, and he's in writing time grid. And I've named this the exit ticket. Now, when you go through the tutorial, they're going to walk you through this, okay? So I'm kind of jumping a few steps just because of the time, but I'm just showing you the initial setup. So what I did was I created a video here. I also put exactly what I said in the video. I typed it. So you have an audio, okay? And then I have it written. And then students, when Geo logs in, all he's going to do is click on the plus sign, and then he'll be able to respond once it pops up on his screen, and then he'll go ahead and click on here. Okay, so that is your Flipgrid. It's really fun, especially for the older kids. They can download this app and do it on their phone, and I promise you, they're a lot more savvy than you think they are. Okay, so that is Flipgrid, and then excuse my typo up here, just noticed that. So that you'll be able to do there's so many different ways that you can use Flipgrid. They could demonstrate their learning, you know, like how to solve a math problem. So it could be anything, but in this case, I just used it for the closure exit ticket questions. Okay, so just to wrap up, I used the resources I used that we've previously talked about in other webinars is Flipgrid, Jamboard, and Padlet.
All right, so just to wrap up, we know that there are still a ton of questions between our students, our teachers, and our family about learning at home, and lots of uncertainty around what it's going to look like for their students. So just one thing to keep in mind as you begin planning for next year, just start small and work your way up. Always over communicate, and then use this as an opportunity to expand on how you and your students learn. And you know that as teachers, we've got each other and we can do this. And one thing in regards to our WritingCity, I know that a lot of people were asking, does WritingCity and SpellingCity count as the same subscription? So there is a lot of the resources that we've discussed about WritingCity. If you are interested in this program, you can reach out to info@writingcity.com, and they're setting up short 10 to 15-minute demos. If you see, if you're thinking WritingCity or Vocabulary SpellingCity would support your needs for the upcoming year, if you're not already using it, you can set up a time. So just to clarify, WritingCity and Spelling Vocabulary City are two separate subscriptions.
Mm-hmm. And you can also sign up for a trial. And if it's something that you're interested, if you feel that your school is more interested in, you can contact info@WritingCity, and we'd be more than happy to provide you with more information other than demo pricing information as well.
And then I know a lot of people, because now is definitely our question and answer time. So a lot of people are asking specifically about the resources that we were highlighting, Jamboard and Kami. So in your email following today's webinar, you will receive the links to our first two webinars. And that's where we talked about each of these tools in more detail. So if you're like, I like Jamboard, but I did not see how to use it, well, then you'll be able to go ahead and do that. You can rewatch, or watch our webinars for the first time if you're just joining us for the first time today.
Okay, so let's go ahead and take some questions, and we'll do the best that we can. And I guess we'll alternate. And I think this time, instead from starting from the top, bottom, Desiree, I'm going to start from the bottom up here.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was going to say I've answered most of them. There's probably about 10 more from the bottom, Carrie. But one that just popped up was about the certificate of attendance. That will be in the email as well.
Yes, so you'll get a follow-up email with the certificate since you've attended, and that will come from GoToWebinar. Okay, and I know a lot of you again are asking if it's free and where to find more information about all the programs that we discussed today. That can be found through our previous webinars that will be included in the follow-up email that we'll send you shortly after this webinar. So please just be patient. That'll be sent to you within 24 hours. Let's see. So you will get a recording shortly after this.
Just had a bunch of people saying they missed something or their computer froze, so don't fret. Like Carrie just said, you'll get the email that has today's recording as well as our first 2 webinars.
Okay.
Sandra was asking, can she get a demo account? Yes, Sandra, right on this page, you'll see the email about info@writingcity.com, so you can set up a short demo. And then Sandy was asking, she said she's a big fan of Spelling City, but she's never used Writing City. It is not a free app, but you are able to get a free demo account, Sandy, so you can dive in and explore the curriculum. So where vocabulary Spelling City is supplemental, Writing City is a curriculum. And then we just had a whole bunch of thank yous. Thank you, Anna. That was a very sweet message.
Yeah, so Padlet gives you 3 free. I'm not sure of the cost, Margot. You will have to look into that, but you do get 3 free ones.
I looked at it today. It's like $8.99 a month if you do the paid subscription.
Oh, there you go. Perfect.
Just like you said, it's free. So
you had a great summer too. Thank you. Yes, Doreen said she'll be exploring these, and just make sure you look out for that email. So we'll send you all the previous, and actually I can provide you guys with one link. Let me see if I can get that for you. They're all on there. So give me a second. I'll provide you with a link in the chat box, and you'll have access to those right now. You can bookmark them.
And we just had someone just jump in and ask, is it for grades 6 through 8? Writing City is a K-5 curriculum. Another, Lisa asked if it would work with her second language students. Absolutely. It's very foundational writing curriculum. So whatever grade level you're starting at with your students, and then I know we didn't get to dive into Writing City, but there's interactive games from the digital library that your students could work with at any skill level. So if they're just doing, initial sounds or a sound letter, that's all there. Yes, if you logged, Julie was concerned she logged in late. She said, will we still receive the emails? As long as you're registered, you'll get the emails with the links from today's webinar as well as the previous that we have covered.
Did you answer that? Would you do online demonstrations for the school?
We did not yet.
Yeah, okay, so that's pretty much what a demo is. If you want an online demonstration for your school or for your team, you can go ahead and email info@WritingCity, and we'll set up a short demonstration of the program. I'm so happy, Kelly, that we provided you with some more resources to use for your struggling learners. Also, my friends, you will be getting a follow-up survey, so please be sure to complete that for us as well in your emails.
Trish was asking, does Writing City have to be used school-wide, or can it be individually within a classroom? You can do either one. You can do a classroom subscription, or within your entire school administration could set that up. So if you just reach out to that info at Writing City, Trish will be able to get you the information you need.
Let's see if I can put the survey here.
And Robin, you were asking, will the email include the certificate for attendance? Yes, that will be in there. It's going to be coming from GoToWebinar. So if you just check your email inbox as well as your junk email, just in case. Thank you, Sarah, for your kind words. We've been excited to do these series of webinars.
I just put the survey link in there. If you all can take the time to do that, that would be fantastic. Just like Desiree said, this is a series, so we hope to continue doing this. And your feedback is very valuable, and it will definitely help us come up with future webinars that we can do.
Dana, you were asking specifically about the K1 for the interactive resources. So the 3 that we shared today were very fitting for our primary elementary kiddos. And then if you take a look at the links from our previous webinars, you'll see like Screencastify, things where you kind of control the interaction is really helpful for our primary friends.
Oops.
Kelly, you were asking about, is Writing City a good resource for struggling learners in high school? So as our curriculum is aligned to standards, kindergarten through 5th grade, that would definitely be an independent decision you'd have to make. If those students are missing foundational skills, that could be something that you could work through, but we'd have to chat with some more about the situation, but it's specifically for kindergarten through 5th grade.
Thank you all for your feedback. Yeah, I messaged the survey in your question box. Okay, great. You all found it. Thank you. If you're using a trial, you will get access to the grade level that you specify. We can certainly share our slides. Yes, we'll do that in the follow-up email. Okay, I think we're good.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. We were excited to have you. Some of you for the 3rd time, which is awesome to have. That's the biggest compliment, is that you keep coming back.
Yes, absolutely. And really quick, the link that I put in to access the previous webinars, just make sure you take a look in the chat box and just kind of bookmark that. There are mini tutorials on Writing City, so you'll get a better idea, because someone had asked about portfolios and accessing work and leaving feedback. All that stuff will be described on that link as well. All right, my friends. So we're going to go ahead and end this session. Again, we want to be respectful of your time. Please enjoy the rest of your summer. It just started. Get your feet wet and enjoy the beach with a drink in the hand, right? Hope all of you enjoy the rest of your Monday. Take care.